Hi John, ready for a chat? Okay, do you still remember the beginnings of the Angelcorpse?
Yeah, of course.
How was it? Whose idea was to start a band?
Well, that was interesting because I filled in for a cover band, and we did a bunch of Megadeth songs and Metallica songs, you know, the usual thrash metal stuff. And I don't remember who that guy was, but he met Gene at a party, and Gene was looking for a drummer, and he said, "Oh, I know this guy that plays all this metal." And so I remember Gene just called me out of the blue. Like, I got this phone call. "Hi, this is Gene. I'm starting this band. I got your number from this person." And I remember it was interesting because I'm like, "What kind of music do you want to play?" And he goes, "Total death metal." You know, so he had this, he's got this big Minnesotan accent, you know. And so I went over there that night, and it turns out that that was the old Order from Chaos house. So Order from Chaos was a band from Kansas City that predates Angelcorpse, as most people know. And so, yeah, I got a phone call around 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd say around 8 o'clock, I went over to the house and talked to the guys, and they handed me a demo tape of just guitar material, and I don't even know if the name Angelcorpse had been thought of yet, or it might have even got thought of that night, but yeah, we hung out and talked for about an hour, and then I took the tape home and listened to it for a couple of days, and probably the following week later, I took my drum kit over there, and that was the start.
Okay, so Pete and Gene was first, and then you, yeah?
It was just Pete and Gene, and then it was myself, and you know, we did a demo, and actually we did the whole first album before Bill came on board. So Bill came on board about a month after the first album was recorded, I believe. That part might be foggy, but yeah, the basement was this moldy, hot, wet basement. You know, it's exactly where you would expect music like that to come from.
Underground.
Underground, yeah.
You played with them from the beginning, but after recording Exterminate album, you left the band. What was the reason for your resignation from Angelcorpse?
If I remember, I mean, what I remember was I wasn't really showing up to practice, and my playing was suffering, and we weren't really getting along that well at that point. But you know, a lot of it, I was really young, and I mean, I was 21 years old, but I was young for 21 as well, so I was not putting my effort into the band like I was supposed to. And they had Tony available. You know, Tony was looking for a project, so they hired Tony and let me go.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the next album, Tony Loreno played drums. I'm curious about two things about this album. Have you been involved in its creation? Have you been working on the new tracks with them?
Go ahead, sorry.
Please.
Yeah, I worked on, I think, one song for like a little bit. There was a couple of parts that Gene and I were playing around with, and then that was it. So not really. I mean, they re-recorded Wolflust, which was a song that I recorded with them on a EP called Wolflust.
So Tony did the whole job from the beginning, in other words.
Yes.
Tell me, have you seen them playing live with Tony or with other drummers?
I saw them play with Tony a couple of times, and then I also saw them play with this other guy, J.R. Daniels, I think his name was, because I came back to the band and recorded Lucifer and Lightning, and there was a tour with Angelcorpse, Watain, and I think Knockmistium, and I wasn't able to do that tour I think I had obligations with Origin, so I ended up driving over and seeing him play with that guy, and that's it. I've only seen Angelcorpse with those two other drummers.
And how do you judge the tracks which they played, which you create before? How do you like the way they play your tracks? You know what I mean?
Well, at that time, Tony was a much better drummer than I was, so he made the songs better. I think they played War Torn too fast, but like everything else, I mean, Tony did a fantastic job. He was the drummer for that band at the time. I don't remember much about the live shows, but yeah, it was great.
After a few years, you returned to the band and record, as you said, the fourth and the last album of Lucifer and Lightning. How do you perceive this album now? Because I think, I'm sorry, it could sound better.
You answered that's basically it. So that album got done in a way that, I mean, albums get done like that all the time now, but I basically went into the recording studio and just tracked the drums. I didn't have anything to play against except for I had click tracks. So I knew a part, I had everything written down in a notebook, you know, okay, part A, 200 BPM, blast beat with China. And so we would just go in there and read my notes, and I would play the part. And then before you know it, we had 8, 9 maybe complete songs of just drums and click tracks. And we sent those sessions down to Tampa, and they finished off the album down there. I don't know what happened in the mix. I wasn't a part of that. They kind of handled all that on their own. But yeah, it sounds a little flat. The way I put it when it first came to me was like, it sounded like the guitars from Heretic, Morbid Angel, and the drums from Blizzard Beasts, you know, Immortal. So I was like, that's a really bizarre combo. But, you know, yeah, of course, the mix could be better. I think it would be cool. I've stated it in the past, it would be cool if somebody could remix that record. But I don't know if there's a desire for it. I don't know if people, I mean, there's a small amount of people that would love to hear that album remixed. And then there's probably, you know, people that are like, no, don't fucking touch it, don't change it, because that gets to be a little overbearing when every album that you have owned is getting a remix, a remaster. Yeah.
But I think this one should
It could use it, yeah, it could use it. There are a handful of albums out there, but like, why was In the Court of the Crimson King like remixed a dozen times and it only sounds, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think this one should be.
It could use a gloss over.
You don't have too much power like your previous albums.
No, it doesn't, unfortunately.
After this album, you leave the band again. What was the reason of these rotations? Was it difficult to work with the other guys in the band?
No, at that point it was not difficult. It was, that was scheduling. That, you know, I came in to record the album, and there was a tour that came up. I wasn't available because Origin was busy. And so this is what happens with a lot of projects. It happens with Angelcorpse at the end. This happened with Gorguts, you know, that I just can't really commit. I think I can, and there's like, we expect there to be a handful of months open, but then what'll happen is the tour can't be booked in that month, or Origin will get something big, you know. And so I never actually, I don't believe I was refired, and I don't remember actually leaving at the time. I don't think I did. I think it just kind of faded off, and they kind of broke up shortly after that. They broke up for the first time.
Yeah.
Or the second time.
Second time, I think.
I guess it's the second time. Yeah, they did that tour with Watain.
You were playing with them after Lucifer some shows, or?
No, I never got to play another show with them.
Ah, okay.
It's so unfortunate, you know, and that's kind of one of the things that I've just accepted I'll never get closure on, is that band won't come back and I won't play live with them, so.
Okay, for me, you always will be associated mainly with Angelcorpse, even though you have been playing in Origin for much more longer time and record much more music with them as well. How do you think about yourself? I mean, which band is the closest to you or most important, objectively?
Well, it's of two very different minds. So I was in Angelcorpse. I mean, I was right out of high school when I was in Angelcorpse, maybe a year or so, and that I came out of being kind of a old school death thrash drummer, and it fit for a little bit, and then they wanted to get, you know, faster and more technical, and I wasn't able to. So that is a band that, yeah, it comes out of my youth, and it's unfortunate that it didn't work out. But Origin is also the band that we just clicked better in working on things. And I think what happened is from losing Angelcorpse, I understood that I needed to put more work in. I needed to understand how to work with people a little bit better. I needed to be a little less cocky, a little less silly as a human and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of that things, you know. However, you know, there is a spiritual successor of Angelcorpse in the wings called Malefic Throne.
I will ask later.
And that will be the closest I get to continuing, which I'm happy to,
Before we move on current topics, I would like you to briefly talk about other bands with which you recorded drum parts, including Gorguts or Skinless. How do you remember these collaborations and why they are your past bands?
Yeah, Skinless was, originally I was gonna go up to New York and help out with Skinless. Origin was having some trouble. We went on a really rough tour in the wintertime, and we weren't treated very well. And at that time, we kind of ate each other up a little bit on it, and my initial intention was to take a break from the band. But in doing that, I didn't really, you know, communicate that very well. I just went, I'm taking a break. I'm going for 6 months. And they're just kind of, what the hell, you know? So I left them high and dry. And, you know, not a good move on my part. And so I originally go up to New York, record the Skinless record, hang out with them, maybe do some shows, and then eventually come back and rejoin Origin. But as I was up there in New York, they started talking about it, and I think they were starting to get offers. So they hired a new guy, and it was just, they didn't fire me, and I didn't really quit, but we just kind of went, all right, well, that's it then. We kind of parted ways from that. And I blame myself on that one, but at the same time, that space needed to happen in order for us to get on the way we've gotten on the past 20 years. So, but with Skinless, I got to record with Neil Kernan. You know, he did Judas Priest, Hall & Oates, you know, Queensryche, all these big bands. He's a multi-platinum producer, and that was really, really cool. And I would love to work with that guy again. Maybe it'll happen one of these days. But that's what that was. And Skinless with me lasted for about a year because at one point there was a push to make the band more brutal and more fast. And as we were playing this material live, a couple of the guys in the band weren't really enjoying that. They wanted to go back and do the, you know, stompy New York thing. And so there was a conversation, and they're like, we kind of want to go back to our roots. And I'm like, you know, so we part ways.
Okay.
Amicably. And Gorguts was like as close to going to a music conservatory because I got to learn all these interesting things from Luc Lemay, Colin Marston, and Kevin Hufnagel. And having those rehearsals was great because that was my first real time spent in New York City. And that just added an entire different side of my playing. And we went out and we did a bunch of shows, we did a tour, we did an Origin Gorguts tour and did double duty. And then again, here we are, schedules clashing. Something, because the Gorguts album was supposed to happen 8 months earlier than it did, but it ended up taking a long time. So Origin caught up. So we recorded the Gorguts record, and I'm waiting. And there's problems with record labels, there's problems with lawyers, there's problems with a lot of So while we're waiting for the Gorguts stuff to come together, Origin records an album and starts getting offers again. And so there was already a conversation between Luke and I that if there's scheduling conflicts, he would get a fill-in. So for a while, he had Patrice in there as a fill-in. And after a while, we had a conversation where Luke was just like, I like having Patrice in the band. I like having you in the band too, but with Patrice I can work more. And I don't want to pull, I don't want to damage Origin. So again,
Okay. What other bands you played with are worth mentioning?
Well, I've subbed for a lot of bands. I filled in for Exhumed, I filled in for The Red Chord, I filled in for Dying Fetus. And they were all very unique learning experiences, and they all have, bits and pieces that I still carry with me today. Fetus was interesting because they were a really professional unit, and you could tell because look how big they are now. So, but that was a 2-month-long tour, November and December, main support for Guar. So it was an eye-opening tour. And, I was a single guy at the time, so that was a really big drug, sex, and rock and roll tour. And so eye-opening, I didn't learn the best things on that tour, but I definitely learned some really interesting stuff. So, Neurectomy is a project I recently did. Mm-hmm. And it's just really, really technical death metal. It's kind of like Origin without the rock and roll.
Oh, okay.
And then there will be Malefic Throne, and even around the same time as Malefic Throne, there'll be another Quebec band called Crackmighton, which will be kind of like Gorguts, only more brutal, maybe, But I just finished recording that, so.
Yeah. But currently, Origin is not the only band you are associated with. You said about Neurectomy, but you have Dimmak, and you play in Hate Eternal as well.
What? Hate Eternal?
Yeah. Do you have time for all these bands?
Well, yes, I do. Well, number one, Dimmak doesn't really exist anymore.
Uh-huh.
As far as I know, Sean and Scott from Dimmak, they have a project that they just do in their own spare time. I don't think they're releasing any music. I think they're just hanging out, doing what they want to do. They got a drummer, this guy named Brian. He's a really cool dude. And as far as I know, they're doing their hobby thing. I don't know if they're going to do an album. I've not been in touch with those guys in a while. Hate Eternal. Hate Eternal is great because Eric loves Origin. Eric knows Mike and Paul and Jason, and he wants nothing to do with damaging Origin. So with Eric having his Cannibal Corpse schedule, Cannibal Corpse always has 2 years booked. Mm-hmm. They are a machine. They're a professional machine. So they always got everything booked. Everything's on a calendar. So we can see Hate Eternal gigs coming 6-8 months away. And so because of what's going on with Cannibal Corpse right now, they're busy and they're getting bigger and they're doing a lot of really cool shit. So nothing will happen with Hate Eternal until 25 at least. And I will know 8 to 9 months ahead of time whether things are going to happen. And which will make it easy so really it's going to be Origin, Malefic Throne, and Hate Eternal. A lot of these other bands, they are recording projects or they are fill-in jobs, they're just me trying to expand, trying to learn more, trying to add more to my playing. And that's how you learn, is you get out of your comfort zone, you do all these other things.
So in other words, no problem with playing in all these bands, with concerts, etc.
Correct. I have to make sure that it doesn't damage the Origin schedule. This is, that's the thing, is like, I was not able to leave Origin for Gorguts. I was not able to leave Origin for, any of these bands, because Origin is the band that helped me, did the most, the reason I'm here. So in
other words, Origin is your
main band, yes.
Okay. In Malefic Throne, we are playing with all friends. Looking at the lineup, you can easily be called a supergroup. You, Steve from Morbid Angel, and Jean from Angelcorpse. But you have only one EP released so far. Tell me, are you already preparing next material? And what about concerts?
We have a full-length album started. We signed with Agonia Records from here, and actually they're not in Krakow. I'm not totally sure where Agonia is at, but
Poland, but not
they're Poland. And I tracked the drums in the summertime, and Gene just finished the guitar. So it's bass and vocals need to get done, and then we'll mix the thing. Imagine we'll be mixing it this summer. At least I hope, because it's very, you know, guitars and drums, it's me and Gene. So it's very similar to Angelcorpse. You know, people that like Angelcorpse are going to dig that band, I think. I think they're gonna, I think they're gonna love it. The thing about it is...
Sorry, haven't you been thinking about asking Pete for vocals?
Nobody's in touch with Pete. I don't know where he's at.
Okay.
I don't think Gene and Pete get along. I think there was a final bad breakup, and I don't know.
I think I know why, but I will tell you later.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I haven't heard from Pete in a long time, you know.
Okay.
No clue. I mean, if it were possible, yes, I would, but I don't know if it's possible.
By the way, tell me, do you know what's the current situation with Morbid Angel? Because the Pete had some injury on the back or something like this, yes?
Trey hurt his back, yeah. He hurt his back, and I think he pinched a nerve, and I think he was having some, I think he was just hurt. And as far as I know, they're gonna be out in the end of the year. I think they're going out, I'm not 100% sure, I don't know, but I just heard something here and heard something there, and signs point to the band being functional and doing something. So whether they do a new record, I couldn't really tell you. You know.
So you were talking about Angelcorpse be back again, so I will not ask again. I assume that it's over.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's over.
You've been playing Origin almost from the beginning. Your music is quite technical and at the same time very intense. Isn't this sometimes an obstacle when playing tours?
When playing what?
Tours, concerts, like now.
Well, as I get older, I do less things that I would do, and I don't drink as much anymore. I try not to eat as much fast food. I spend more time warming up, you know, and no, it's not difficult. We just did a 4-week tour with Vader, and this is going to be a little over 4 weeks. Doing everything out of a van and driving ourselves, that makes things difficult. But luckily, we're on a bus and everybody's taking care of us now, so that makes things relatively easy. The playing is actually the easiest part of the tour.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like, the most difficult part is trying to go to sleep on the other side of the world for me right now. Okay. So that's what I'm dealing with.
As you said about the tour, you've just started this one. What are your expectations from it?
From this tour? Oh, fantastic.
What are your expectations on the future concerts?
Well, you know, it's interesting because it's interesting to see how this band, how Origin works in a primarily black metal crowd. You know, Deuce Wins, they are a black metal band. Marduk is the black metal band. So it's fun because we're kind of combining the two, you know. It's like in certain markets, we might be a little more silly, we might be a little more comedic, but that doesn't quite translate. And not even in just black metal, you know, shows. When we were over here last year with Monstrosity, and it was interesting. It was a different kind of, you know, reaction. It's learning about how the band is accepted by the crowd, and then we try and lean into that, you know. Some crowds want more fun. Some crowds want more straight, straight up musicianship, and some crowds just want nasty bludgeoning, blast beats. And so a lot of that has to do with Jason, and Jason's really quick at knowing how to address. He can look at the crowd and he can be like, oh, this crowd is going to want, a different version of the band. So, and it's good for us to be able to do that.
We are slowly approaching to the end of the conversation. I would like you to know, I would like to know which drummers made you start playing drums.
Fuck, man. Buddy Rich, Nickel McBrain, Gene Hoglan, Sean Reinert, Clive Burr, Brandon Thomas in Denmark. That guy's amazing. He's one of my little secret weapon drummers. I learn all kinds of little things from him. There are so many dudes. Dave Lombardo, Paul Bostaff, considering my age, that it's gonna be a lot of the second generation death metal guys that really got me moving. And before that, it was a lot of jazz musicians because I was raised in a jazz family.
Oh.
So, yeah.
So, who is your timeless drumming master?
Neil Peart.
All right. Nowadays, many young drummers can play amazing. Have you discovered any new names? Do you follow any drummer and follow his development?
Well, I'm gonna have a lot of fun watching Simon Schilling all month. We toured together when he was in Belfagor for a while, and that was fantastic watching him. And he's in a black metal band, but he's a lot more than a black metal drummer. So, oh yeah, fantastic player. It's a lot of these drummers. There's a lot of drummers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And they're really fucking good. But my question to them is, can you do it live, over and over again, 30 days, dealing with the elements, dealing with being sick and tired and all that stuff. And so that's why I tend to find my drummers when I tour with them. I get out there and I see them doing, really fucking amazing work in their own right, but still doing it alongside us, still going through the same bullshit we're going through. So at that point, I'm like, I know what that guy's fucking going through, and he's still shredding. So, George Colias is gotta be the best death metal drummer I've ever seen. There are guys that do certain things better than he does, but he does he's got such a large palette. And so he can do a lot of other things better than a lot of dudes, so there's a lot of that, so.
How did you start playing this instrument? Nowadays, you can turn on YouTube and know everything, but in 90s or 80s, there was not such possibility. Where did you get your inspiration and knowledge?
You had to go to shows, and you had to go early, and you had to try and meet the band, or you had to try and sneak in, you had to try and sneak backstage. And it was like, back in that point in time, the term back home, we referred to him as music police. And I was just one of those music police. I was the guy that was able to sneak back, get behind the drummer and watch him. Wow. Or dudes would have video cameras, and so there was a lot of VHS trading, and there was a lot, my friend Jim would he would have these pen pals that had videos of drummers playing, and luckily we were able to get onto a couple of, we were able to go out with Vader very early on in our career. We were able to go out with Hate Eternal and Nile early on in our career, so we got to see a lot of really top level musicians pretty early in our career. Suffocation came through Topeka, Kansas, and those guys were able to get really close and watch. So it was really about that. It was traveling to shows, getting up close, meeting the people, and that's how you learn. Dave Colross was nice enough to just let me sit next to him while he played in Malevolent Creation in 92, 93, I can't remember. It was basically like that. The scene was much smaller then, and there was a lot, there was no cell phones, so. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, most of the bands you play or have played, you play quite demanding music.
Yep.
Have you ever wanted to play some simple one?
Yeah, and I do it from time to time. I played a few jazz shows. Actually, just a couple of weeks ago, I did a cover band full of Queensryche shows, Queensryche songs. That was a lot of fun. It wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, you know. But yeah, it's definitely nice. There was a jazz and blues pub in Brooklyn that I used to go to quite often, and I would just sit in and just do that. But you know, it's not ever going to be as fulfilling as this is. So.
Okay. By the way, are you working on new Origin and Hate Eternal albums?
There is new material that's been written, but I have yet to receive it. You know.
But for which band?
Pardon?
For both?
Yeah. You know, well, Eric is really busy with Cannibal, but I know JJ and Eric have a series of, I know they have some material written. And I know Paul has some material written too, but he's not at the phase or he's letting it out yet. He's still working on it. So, you know, you let them have their time, you let them do that, and when they're ready for you, they come and they tell you to start working, and then we start working. So.
Okay, last questions. Are you a fan of stand-up comedy?
Yeah.
And what are your favorite comedians?
You know, I was really big into Doug Stanhope a good 10, 15 years ago. I haven't really kept up. But Doug Stanhope was a lot of fun. John Mulaney was a lot of fun. He was funny when he was early on. Mitch Hedberg, you know. I almost wrecked the van listening to Mitch Hedberg for the first time. Yeah. That's just to name a few.
I ask because I think you maybe heard that Paul Mazurkiewicz from Cannibal Corpse
Saw that, yeah.
is going to do some stand-up, you know?
I think he already did it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he did that in Ybor City down in Tampa. I haven't heard any reviews yet, but he's a funny guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd be interested in see what he's got.
Okay, thanks. That's all. That's time for your last words.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out to the shows and keep coming. I don't know. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna stay right here. We're gonna keep playing. We're gonna keep doing this. We're too dumb to quit, too old to whatever. I don't know what the phrase is, but you know.
Thanks.
Thank you.